It's Randy over here, Unique Design, back with another episode on how to start a clothing brand, a step-by-step process. Today's episode, we're going to go ahead and talk about all the legal things that you need to know about starting a clothing brand, as far as business license goes, trademarks, copyrights, all the stuff that's involved. Now, we will have time code in the description, so you can skip to the parts that you're familiar with or you're not familiar with, so that way you can just kind of fast forward to the parts that you need to know. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. So one of the things about starting a clothing brand for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs is the tough thing about all the legal things that you might have to do. And there aren't too many, but there are things that you need to do just like any other business. So keep all these in mind about when you're starting your brand, things, kind of check off your list as you go. You don't have to do them all at once, and you don't have to do them all before you start. And we'll jump into that a little bit further down the episode. Now, one note before we get into everything, one important note is I am wearing a shirt and tie, for this legal episode, but I'm not a lawyer, all right? So I have no legal degree. I have no legal schooling. Everything that I'm telling you is just from the businesses that we've done in the past 25 years. So please seek real legal advice if you have real legal questions. Refer to everything I'm telling you right now as a business owner who's been through this, but not a legal professional, because I'm not a legal professional, so don't try to sue me if you get something on here that's wrong. Don't look at everything that I say is exactly written by law, line by line, okay? I'm just giving you my legal experience with all the companies and brands I've worked with. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer, and I don't want to be a lawyer, right? So please, before you do anything, always seek professional legal advice, right? So make sure you do that. Now let's get on with our episode. We're going to go ahead and start off with the very first thing that you do. The very first thing that you do with any business. And, what we're going to do, you're going to have like local things that you need to do, and then, things that you need to do with your state or government. There's not really any federal things that you really have to do when it comes to a clothing brand, as long as your business is in line. So let's go ahead and talk about that. The first thing that any business has to do is you need to have what we call a fictitious business name, or a DBA, which means doing business as. Now, locally here in California, in Southern California particularly, we have an office that's not too far away, and every county has different rules and regulations, so please check with your local county for your rules and regulations. Out here in San Diego area, we go to what we call the Recorder Assessor County Clerk. And in there is where you can go and file your fictitious business name. So when you go in there, you'll have a little computer, and this is kind of something that you've got to physically go in to do, because they're going to need to see some documents, some identification and stuff like that. So once you go, and you'll have whatever your business name is, and you'll go online and you'll look in their records, right? This is local county records for your business name. So whatever your name is, ours is Unique Design. You type it in there, you see if there's anybody else with the same name. If they don't, you go ahead and you fill out this form with your fictitious business name. And it's going to ask you a couple of questions. The main questions are, and this is going to be another episode, is it a sole proprietorship? Is it a partnership? Is it a corporation? Is it a limited liability corporation, LLC? And those are things that you need to know before you actually file your fictitious business name, because that's going to dictate how your taxes are going to be interpreted moving forward. So once you do file your fictitious business name, I think it's like $40 out here in San Diego. You put it in, and then they're going to give you a paper that says, okay, here's your fictitious business name. Now, the next step that you have to do from there is you have to publish that name in a local newspaper for 3 to 4 weeks. So they'll give you, at least locally here, they'll give you some resources where you can just go online and they'll publish that name. Once the name is published for 3 or 4 weeks, and then you have to once again file it with the local state assessor recorder clerk. Most of the services that we use, you just go ahead and pay them. It's like $15. They publish it for 3 weeks. Once they're done publishing it, they'll file it for you, and then they'll send a receipt that is actually filed. Now, that's what you really need to finalize your fictitious business name, but that's not what you need moving forward. All you need is that paper that they're going to give you. They're going to stamp it at your assessor recorder clerk. now you can take your next steps now that you have your fictitious business name, or your DBA, which means doing business as. And from there, this is where we're going to move into the next step. The next thing that you want to do is you need to get a business license. And again, I'm referring specifically San Diego County, Southern California. And honestly, California has probably the most strict business rules, regulations, cost anywhere. So if you can do it here, you can pretty much do it anywhere. There's no other state that I know that has so many rules, regulations, costs, and fees added to starting a business like we do here in California. So the next thing that you want to do locally or in your local area is you want to go and get your business license. Here in California, they either do quarterly, semi-annually, or annually, where basically you pay for your business name, you go in there, you tell them what you're doing, it's apparel, right? So embellishing apparel, selling apparel, which includes hats, shirts, socks, anything you can put on there, you want to put on there for your business so you can actually get a business license. So now you'll have your fictitious business name and your business license with the name on your fictitious business certificate that you get. So with that, you can take your next steps. Next step, in my opinion, would be to go ahead and open a bank account with your fictitious business name and your business license. That way you have a bank account that's separate from your own bank account. It has its own expenses. The IRS, as well as your local tax, your state tax, will connect to that account, and that's the one they're going to watch. And you don't want them, all in your personal account, seeing how many times you order Starbucks and stuff like that. So I would definitely just go ahead and open an account, and it would be a business account. So you get a little perks, but the one thing about opening a business account, different than opening a personal account, is that sometimes they have higher minimum requirements for you to maintain to keep your monthly fees away. And also, there's some things that you can't do on a business account that you can do with a personal account, and vice versa. There's things that you can do with a business account that you can't do with a personal account. But once you start selling online, whether you get selling on, with Shopify, Amazon, eBay, those accounts are going to connect to this business account, which is a very important thing. You don't want that connecting to your personal account. So make sure you go ahead and get your business account. If you have a local credit union, I would always recommend going through a local credit union rather than going through a big bank, because local credit unions actually do a lot more for small businesses. I personally have a business account with Wells Fargo, and we've had a Wells Fargo account since 2008. And honestly, I would not do it again. If I could go back and open a bank account with a different bank, I would definitely do it. And I'm even thinking about transitioning out of Wells Fargo. And we've had Wells Fargo for so long. Everything's connected to our Wells Fargo. All of our merchant accounts, all of our e-commerce stores, our Amazon, our eBay, our Etsy, all these things are connected to it. So it takes a lot longer for us to transition to another account. We can't just shut everything down. So if you have a chance, don't go through Wells Fargo. My personal opinion, me and other business owners that we've been with Wells Fargo, they have so many ways where they try to stick you for random fees, and that's a whole nother topic. Just avoid the nightmare if you can. So in my opinion, that would be step 3, would be to open your business account for your apparel line. Now you have your fictitious business name, your DBA. Now you have your business license, and now you have your bank account. The next thing that you want to do is you want to get your seller's permit. Now a seller's permit is what gives you the ability to order apparel, decoration items, and things that you need for your business at a wholesale cost without paying taxes. So you can order your shirts, and most manufacturers and distributors require a seller's permit before you can actually order directly from them, or else you're going to pay retail prices. In California, it's the CDTFA, if I remember the letters correctly. I have a link in the description if you're from California, so you can actually connect that to get your seller's permit. It only takes, sometimes you get approved instantly, and sometimes it takes a day or two to get you your approval for the seller's permit. Every time I've done it for all my different brands and with my customers and clients, it's only taken that same day to get approved. Once you get your seller's permit, you'll get a certificate. if you have a local business or brick and mortar store, you kind of hang that up. They tell you to display it somewhere publicly so that it can be seen. And if you're not at a local, if you're not in a brick and mortar store, you're doing everything from home or remotely, you just have one to keep on file, because whenever you open an account with a distributor or a manufacturer, you're going to have to provide that certificate to send to them, so that way you can order your apparel, your inks, your threads at a wholesale price. Now, it's important to know that everything that you order isn't tax-free. Only the things that are designed to be resold. So if you're ordering a shirt, a hat that you're going to resell, you'll get those tax-free. But certain things that you order that you're not reselling, they're not going to be tax-free. And the reason is because when you sell those, you have to charge taxes at your local state, and mostly if you're selling online, most states now have what we call a sales tax nexus, which means they're charging sales tax in whatever state that you're selling. That way you still have to pay sales tax. So whatever you're selling, you're going to have to track, and we'll talk about that in another episode, but you got to track your sales because you got sales tax to pay. All right, now that you have all your bank account, business license, fictitious business name, your seller's permit, all that dialed in, now you want to figure out copywriting or trademarking. A lot of people get confused between the two. Hey, I'm going to copyright my logo. I'm going to trademark my logo. I'm going to patent my logo, right? Now, they're not the same thing. And, let's be clear that copywriting, trademarking, and patenting, there are ways to legally protect your design, your idea, your build, but they're not all the same thing. And I'm going to kind of explain the difference between those to you right now. Now, copyright, you'll see it. It's the circle C, and I'll throw an example here in the video. You'll see a little picture of it. But a copyright only protects that exact design. So let's say you copyright your logo, right? And you have a logo with circle C on it. Now, that protects that actual design, but it doesn't protect your brand. So if I change that design slightly, I can still use it because it's not the one that you exactly copyrighted, right? So let's say you have a picture of a skull with a sword going through it, and that's copyright whatever your brand name is. Now, competing brand or somebody else can just make something similar to it, and I can't get in trouble because I'm not using your exact design. So that's what a copyright does. It just protects that exact design. And the only time I recommend getting a copyright is on certain designs. A lot of people ask, should I copyright my t-shirt designs? Now, every design that you sell created by you has what we call like a soft copyright to it, because you've created when you can prove that you have it before somebody else. But it's such a gray area that I never would count on that. But honestly, copywriting designs, as far as like t-shirt designs and stuff like that, it's not even worth the time, because you're not going to keep selling that same design. Most designs are going to get recycled or changed in certain ways that if you're counting on somebody never reusing your design, you're sadly mistaken. It's going to happen, or they're going to copy something similar. And honestly, a lot of brands, that's what they do, is they borrow from each other. They see something that's popular and they'll take something else and make something similar to it. So copywriting individual designs is honestly a pretty big waste of time when it comes to apparel. Now, certain other spaces in certain other industries, it makes sense, but in apparel, a t-shirt design, a hat design, trying to copyright that is a waste of time and resources. So I definitely would not recommend copywriting individual designs. Now, trademarks. What's a trademark? The difference between a trademark and a copyright. Okay, trademark is your brand's likeness. So when you see companies that have the TM, and I'm going to have an example in this video somewhere, you'll see a TM pop up. TM is a way more powerful thing, because what that does is that protects your brand's likeness. So if you're a brand and you're in the same space and you have a certain colors that you use with your brand, a certain look that you have for your brand, if another company tries to do something similar with your name and your likeness, you can actually sue them, or send a cease and desist letter, because a trademark does more than a copyright. A trademark involves what your brand is about. And if you want to jump back to one of our episodes, and I'll put a link below about building a brand, and what a brand is, and that's what a trademark does. It actually protects your brand likeness. So If I have like Monster energy drinks, and you guys will see the Monster, the M with the trademark, and the words Monster trademarked. If I do anything similar to that in that space, I can get sued, right? If they have it copyrighted, I could probably do something similar to it and get away with it. But since it's trademarked, anything that has stepping into their boundaries of their brand likeness is where I would get in trouble. And that's where you want to really step in with your brand, is when it comes to your logo, your brand identity. That's what you want to do, is you want to get a trademark. And a trademark is more extensive, a lot goes into it. You can't just trademark a name, right? Certain things you can't trademark. You can't trademark a common phrase. So if I common phrase like let's get lit or something like that, you can't trademark that. They consider that a common phrase. You can't trademark certain things that are used in everyday conversation or things that refer to. It's funny because got a quick story for you. Escalators. Everyone knows what an escalator is. In the mall, you jump on an escalator, the moving stairs. Escalator was actually a brand name. That's not what they were called. They were called moving stairs. But the brand escalator never did anything to protect the name. So escalator started being used commonly, and when that happened, they lost the ability to trademark their brand escalator. And unfortunately, anyone can make things escalators and call them escalators now. So that's why it's important to trademark it, because once it becomes commonplace, you can no longer protect that. Now think of Velcro. Velcro is actually a trademark. Everyone knows what Velcro is, but Velcro is a brand. It's actually not the item. The product is actually called hook and loop. So when other people make it, it's called hook and loop. You have the felt and the little thing that you peel apart. That's actually called hook and loop. Velcro is the brand that makes hook and loop. So Velcro is the most well-known brand that makes hook and loop, and they're trademarked. So again, anyone who tries to do anything in that name space trying to use it, they're liable to get sued or be in trouble. So that's why you want to use a trademark rather than a copyright. Trademark does more, and honestly for less. It costs more to get a trademark, but it protects more than a copyright, right? And so when you do get a trademark, there's things you have to have in place: colors, your brand likeness, and all these other things in order to get approved for a trademark that's really going to protect you to do it the right way. And that's something that you really want to look at once you start really building a brand that people look at in a certain way, is getting that trademark. Now, there's a couple other things that you need to do once you start reselling your brand. In America, we have a thing that's called a RN number, which stands for registration number. On some clothing labels, you're going to see an RN number. Now, the only time you need an RN number is if your brand name is different than your company name. So with us, our mother company is Unique Design, and let's just say we have a brand called Climate, right? So if we have a brand called Climate, but it's under the company Unique Design, when you see the clothing label, we don't want to put Unique Design on there because that's going to confuse people. Like, wait a minute, I thought I bought a shirt, a Climate shirt. Why does it say Unique Design? Well, the way that you can do that is you get an RN number. The RN number is your registrant number, which will show where the brand is registered under Unique Design. So that way I can have various brands under one company without having to put that company on the individual products that are being sold, because you have a registration number, which makes it easier to protect your brand and to keep your brand standing on its own. So once you get going, and some people we have multiple brands, you don't want them to have the same company name under it, because each brand has a different culture, they have a different demographic they're selling to, and so having an RN number is a good thing once you have a company that's outside of your brand. Now, sometimes you might see a CA number, and I'll throw an example of that on there as well. A CA number is a CA number is what you need in Canada, which is the same thing as RN number, a way of them looking up your company if your company and your brand name are separate. So having a CA number is only important if you're selling in Canada. And why wouldn't you want to sell in Canada? I mean, come on, you're just missing out on a whole country. So this is the thing that I get asked so many times is, do I need to get a trademark before I start selling my brand? Do I need to get a fictitious business name? Do I need to get all these things? And the answer is yes and no. Right? That's not a good answer. Well, the answer is yes. Once you start getting traction and you start seeing that you're making sales, I mean significant sales, you sell a couple $100, what's the point, right? Because all this stuff is going to cost money to do. And that's why I tell people, don't go do this at first. You have a great idea, and unless you really are crazily believe in that idea without proof of concept, which means you haven't sold anything yet, you're going to go through all these steps, spend a lot of money, a lot of time to get all the legal stuff done, and then your brand never takes off, it never sells, and then you're like, wow, I spent tons of money and time on something that just didn't go anywhere. And it's easy to get burned out that way, right? And a lot of times we pivot. Sometimes we'll start a brand and then we see something else and we end up pivoting and going a different direction. And had you done all that stuff in the beginning, you can't really pivot. So in my opinion, I think the best way to do it is to just start selling your stuff. You know, once you start seeing the direction you're going, once you start seeing sales, once you see this is something that you can actually do sustainably, then start doing the things that you need to do on the business side, going to get your business name, your business license, fictitious business name. But at the early stages, I don't recommend it because it's a lot of time and it's a lot of money to do it with something if you're not sure it's going to go anywhere. And I've had a couple of ideas that I thought were amazing and they just didn't go anywhere. And you know, that's just what entrepreneurship is, right? Sometimes you're trying things out, and sometimes, you know, some things I think would be amazing, but other people don't. So it's just kind of like you don't want to put all that time and effort into something that you're not sure will work. But once you start getting traction, and once you start seeing sales, and once you start seeing it grow, then you want to hurry up and do it, because that way now you will be protected. So it's not something you have to do right away, and it's something you have a certain exact timeline on. You got to just basically judge it on what's going on with everything else around you, you know. And it's important with everything else, like I said, getting your domain name and all that, so you have it all tied together, you know, when you have all your business stuff in place, right? So with that being said, you know, thanks for watching, you guys. Please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, you know, get the notifications, and check out our other videos that we have. You know, leave a comment, like the video, and just spread the love, you guys. Thanks again for everything you've done, and see you in next week's episode.